Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Ana Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ana Lara. Today, I want to talk about something that's very important. So this conversation is for both men and women. I know it's going to be generally talking about women and pregnancy and advocating for yourself during pregnancy and then after the pregnancy. But I think it's very important for men, right? If you're married, you have a wife, a pregnant wife, you need to know about this because you are also someone who's standing in the gap to be the provider and protector in this space for your wife. And so it's very important to have someone who advocates for their spouse, their wife. I have a special guest today. Let me introduce, do her bio, and then we'll bring her on to the show. Her name is Nicole Angus. She is the founder of Rooted Success Solutions, where she partners with naturopathic doctors and wellness professionals to strengthen their business operations, marketing systems, and patient communication. She's passionate about helping purpose-driven practitioners build sustainable, impactful practices that truly serve their communities. And I have to say, she's amazing because she helps me in my practice with my social media. So if you see my social media posts on any of my platforms, she is a creative mind behind that. So thank you. Before launching her business, Nicole trained and worked as a licensed birth doula, supporting women through pregnancy and childbirth. And while she's not currently practicing as an active doula, she remains deeply connected to maternal health education and continues to advocate for informed consent, patient autonomy, and women feeling confident in medical spaces. Her unique perspective bridges both worlds, understanding the clinical environment from the provider side and the vulnerability of patients from first-hand birth support experience. Nicole believes that empowering women to advocate for themselves during pregnancy and birth creates stronger families and healthier outcomes and more collaborative relationships between patients and providers. And with that said, help me welcome Nicole to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for being here. So this conversation came about because we were in my conference room after you were helping me do some professional shots. And we were just having a conversation about this. And I said, we need to do an episode on this because a lot of women need to know what their rights are, right? And advocate for themselves and know how to navigate this world. And so I really felt like what you were sharing that day, though it was weeks ago, it really was empowering. So I'm happy to hear what your stance and take is. I mean, we heard your bio and what got you involved in this. Tell us a little bit about what was really the driving point that you wanted to be a birth doula.
Oh, yeah. So this topic is deeply personal to me because during my second pregnancy with my child, I developed gestational hypertension, and that quickly ended up escalating into preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. And everything happened really fast, and I just remember feeling like I lost control of everything, and all the consent process around what I had planned with my birth plan, what I had planned for, what I expected and imagined how everything would look, and just didn't fully understand what was happening to me and what questions to ask and kind of how to navigate that whole difficult health medical emergency that came at me. And unfortunately,
it's okay. It's okay. Take your time.
We lost our baby due to placenta abruption, which really was a key factor that drove the HELP syndrome. So it was just a domino effect at that point. And that experience really changed me forever. So because of that, I made a promise to myself. Ooh.
This is raw and
yeah,
real.
this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I made a promise to myself that I would help educate women just to understand that, like, informed consent and advocacy is so important, especially when you're caught off guard, but just even in any normal, average, everyday pregnancy that anyone goes through. So thankfully, as you know, I became pregnant again, which was great, and we had our rainbow baby. So I was able to walk into that pregnancy very informed, very strong, very aware, and able to understand what was going to happen, how that was going to look, and ultimately it led me into having a very happy, healthy pregnancy and, you know, able to have a VBAC and deliver her. And like I said, she's about to turn 4. So
she's about to turn 4.
Here we are.
That's her little rainbow baby. And
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's an awesome child. Well, guys, this is, I got emotional too because it's real. And this is one of many stories that happens to many, many women too often. And so we want to talk about that from, you know, as moms, as women who've gone through this experience. And I know that there's women that are going to be listening to us that have experienced this and, you know, may be emotional. We encourage you to keep listening because what I respect a lot about your experience, and thank you for, I know there's a vulnerability there of sharing this, and this is probably the side that many people don't see. They hear the stories, but they don't see the emotion, the grief of the loss behind that. And there's so much that's happening physiologically in a woman when she's pregnant and in the process of birthing and all of that, making decisions. Our brain is like hijacked. I don't care how intelligent and wise you are. It changes the neurochemistry in our brain. And so it makes it difficult to make decisions. And this is why I say the husband, the partner needs to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And if they're not able to, then there needs to be a third person. And there's nothing wrong with that, of bringing someone out, like having 2 people that can advocate for you, that know where you stand on these things. So that's what this episode is devoted. But I was going to say is that you were able to take this experience that was tragic, but use it for good. And I can tell, I mean, Nicole might be working with, you know, more of like the business marketing side for businesses, but your own experience of medicine and healthcare, it's what is the uniqueness of working with someone like you in our industry, because you get it, and your creativity, your passion, like, you know what matters to the audience, right? And you know what needs to come out. So I really love that about you. So let's get started. Let's talk about why this self-advocacy really matters, right? What are some suggestions or things that you would recommend that women say they're wanting to get pregnant or they are pregnant? What are some things that they need to start thinking about with their partner in terms of how to go about it?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is just understanding and learning. Like, I feel like we do so much research as women about how to get pregnant, and if it takes us a while, what steps we need to do to prepare our own bodies. However, when we go through those steps, I don't think that we understand how to really learn about everything aside from just like your basic, oh, I'm nauseous, I'm tired, the fatigue, the baby growth, you know, all the fun little, this week the baby's the size of this fruit, or, you know, all those fun things. We are so, I feel like, just like entangled and involved in worrying about the baby's growth and how they're doing. We sometimes forget to think about how we're doing. And that's a huge key factor in taking a pause and noticing the symptoms and really understanding, hey, something doesn't feel right, or I'm noticing, you know, these symptoms of swelling, or I'm noticing these symptoms of maybe, you know, having unexplained weight gain, or anything that's just off track from the normal, that's going to kind of raise a red flag, because we know our body's best. And understanding that and acknowledging that, I feel like, is a huge step in being able to start with advocating for yourself right off the bat.
Yeah, you're so right. I think I'm trying to think back, like with my first child, we're looking at the baby, the growth and all of that. And that is fun. But then it's like, let's take a look at you. Like because if it's your first time or you're considering you've not had babies, you don't know what to expect. Yeah. And sometimes you can ask all your friends and family, but they're looking at those other things that are fun and cute. They're not looking at what's normal, what's not normal. And maybe your doctor isn't doing that. So there are a lot of things that, that if you notice something's off, that we should mention that to the doctor. I mean, it is also, I'll say, it is a job of the doctor, if they're working with pregnant women, to ask, are you having swelling in your ankles, or even just observing your hands, and what's your diet, what's your let's look at all these symptoms to make sure it's not just, let's weigh you, let's do the ultrasound, and okay, see you in a month or two or whatever time frame. Yep. There is a lot more. So it's like almost like if you don't know what to look for, then how do you know it's a problem? So I would say start looking at some of without stressing yourself, right? Or find a good provider that's going to be screening for these things as well.
No, I agree. And I think that there is a point where women need to understand both the beauty of birth, but also the realities of what can arise, because as much as we want to learn, but we're learning more about our baby's body and their growth, we're forgetting to learn about our own body and our growth. And it's a scary thing to think about what could go wrong. Yeah. Because you don't want to think that. That is a very, very taboo topic. Yeah. And if you're not wanting to think, then you're just kind of putting it on the back burner. It's behind you, like, no, it's the rearview mirror. I'm not going to worry about that until it's front and center. You're not going to understand that it can just pop up at any moment. For me, it started happening as early as 20 weeks, but I've seen it happen later for other women. And at 20 weeks, that's still pretty early for things to start kind of going a little wonky also. But you don't expect things like that to happen. No. You really don't.
You want to go in with the right mindset. You don't want to be thinking of all the negative, because that's also could be detrimental to a woman's health if she's only focused on the negative things. What were some signs that you maybe noticed, experience, that you didn't give it, give it any importance to it? Was there any signs that you were noticing now in hindsight that you're like, these were signs that I could have asked or said something about it?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. And I think some of the things were the swelling. And I know swelling is very typical in pregnancy, and that's something that's not a big alarm factor or a factor that anyone really worries about too often, whether it's a midwife or a OBGYN doctor. They're like, oh, swelling's normal. It's okay. Let's just keep an eye on it. But then when you start to notice that your rings are tight and they can't come off or go on anymore, and you see it in your face, you start to feel it in your shoes, those types of things start to be like, oh, well, this is different. And you're drinking water, you're eating well, you're exercising, you're doing what you're supposed to, but you're seeing these things, and they're supposed to be incremental of how they happen. But all of a sudden, it feels like you're kind of taking leaps and strides towards them. It starts to become an alarming factor. And for me, I started noticing frontal lobe headaches a lot and didn't understand what it was. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I, used to have chronic migraines ages ago, and they just kept kind of checking it off to, well, maybe it's just having migraines. But those always happened over here or over here. It was never the front. And that started to prompt what was happening to me. So I had taken matters into my own hands and started monitoring my blood pressure. And I was like, this is interesting, because I've always had perfect numbers for blood pressure, and noticed the 120/80 started not really being what was happening. It was looking more like 130s over 90 or 140 over 90. And I'm like, this seems a little high. Like, what's happening? So I started asking the questions. And then one day I noticed like there was like weird pain happening in my leg, and I was like, is this a blood clot in my leg? Like, what's happening? So I didn't think much of it, and kept thinking they're telling me it's just headaches of the migraines. It's nothing going on, and went and got checked out, because as a pregnant woman, once things do start kind of acting weird, you're like, okay, here's the alarms, here's the sirens, what's happening to me? Yeah. So I went and got checked, and they were like, did you know your blood pressure is 190 over 90? And I was like, ooh, that's high. No, like I've been monitoring it and letting my midwife know, but they didn't have much concern. They had put me on some medication to try and help and, found a few things that did regulate it, but at the same time, it really didn't. And that's when everything kind of started closing in on us, and we noticed, okay, something's happening that's not right. So, as great as midwives and doctors are, they're dealing with multiple patients a day. So if you're not taking matters in your own hands and knowing what to look for, or taking care of yourself and monitoring yourself, something like that can slip through the cracks. Because like you said, if you're not seeing them for 4 to 6 weeks, which in the beginning, you don't see them very often. You start to see them more frequently towards the end of your pregnancy. But in those early months, you have such a big window for anything to happen. And if you're not aware of what to look for, or you're not aware of how to understand what's happening in your body, it can just go from 0 to 60 so quick. And that's what happened. So everything just kind of escalated from there. And they're like, do you know you have gestational hypertension now? And I was like, oh, that's a new one. No, I did not know I had that. So we found that out in the emergency room on a random Thursday night at like 1 a.m. And we're like, well, this is new news to us. How come no one has said anything? And that's when it just kind of kept going. And we were like, wow, okay. So once you start getting those first signs, I think it's very important to kind of take a step back and start right there of knowing, okay, I need to advocate for myself, because as great as my midwife or OBGYN is, I need to remember I am one patient in a practice of many.
Yes.
So that's when I had to start speaking up for myself and saying, hey, these are my readings that I've been having. Things are looking like they're evolving. They're starting to get higher and higher. What is happening here? And that's when they started taking it seriously, because they're like, oh, well, are you having frontal, headaches? And I'm like, I've been having those for weeks, if not over a month now. So then all the, dominoes started to fall in the line, and it's like, okay, everything's making sense now. And then it just evolved into the perfect storm. So my body just went into like overdrive of everything once it started. And I think that's when things get scary and you're like, okay, well, now this whole plan I had, I have to hand this over to these professionals that know what they're doing. And all of a sudden, I don't know what I'm doing anymore because I didn't plan for this to happen. So that's where the fear sets in of, okay, I don't know what to do anymore. So let me just relinquish control and hand it over to someone else. But that's the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of this stems from, is because we just get scared and we don't want to seem like we're going toe to toe or trying to say to this physician, I know better than you, because that's not the case. It's just, I know my body better than anybody knows my body. And it's up to them to listen to what I'm saying about what I'm feeling and experiencing.
That is so true. There's several things I want to touch on, and that is that sometimes these symptoms or signs that are normal in pregnancy, but what is normal? When is it not normal? Like, yeah, there's going to be some swelling, but it shouldn't be. It should be something minimal. If it's a lot of swelling, that's a red flag. If all of a sudden, you're 20 weeks, 25 weeks, you've had some very minor swelling that you notice, but all of a sudden now you're like really swollen, and not just your legs, but your face, that's a red flag, because and I think women are not taught like what is normal to experience or not, right? Maybe we'll have to put a guide of what's normal, what's not normal. It'll take some months, so give us some time of like what's normal, what's not. And then the frontal headaches, I mean, from the beginning of pregnancy, it is normal to have a little bit of a pressure, it's not an intense headache, but you do notice a difference. And the reason is because our pituitary gland is working really hard to signal our ovaries and our body to make all of these hormones that are like 10 times the amount that we normally make. So that pituitary gland actually swells up. And just that little bit of swelling causes pressure there, like a little bit of a headache pressure there. Yep. But it should not be, it'll kind of come and go, but it shouldn't be extreme. And that's one thing that women can take from this conversation is it'll be normal to have a little bit of a pressure headache there. But if it's anything outside of a little bit of a pressure headache, and it usually resolves after the first trimester, because from there the placenta kicks in and is making a lot of progesterone. And so there's, it's not unusual to have it, but it should ease up after the first trimester. So yeah, there's some things that normal in pregnancy, but then at some point that's no longer the norm. There's something else you said, you relinquish, once you get to this point of there's fear that sets in, you relinquish control because I don't know what to do. That is like a trauma response.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, like I'm out. And this is why having the plan is going to be so important. And I know I have in my notes here, and maybe we'll just bring it up to this point. We'll just skip ahead. The importance of a birth plan.
Yep.
I remember when I was pregnant with my first daughter, my chiropractor told me, create a birth plan. And at first I was like, I'm not one of those moms that, gets all crazy. But she kept saying, create a birth plan. And so I looked into the birth plans, and there's so many online now. I mean, this was 2009. Right now, there's like tons of them, different, formats and samples online that you can find. And you can alter that birth plan however you like. That's the nice thing. And the birth plan is going to consist of what do you and your partner, right, your spouse, what do you foresee happening, whether it's if you're in the hospital or you are in a birthing center or you're birthing at home. A lot of it is really for hospital.
Yeah.
It's if you're in the hospital, this is what I would like to see happen while I'm actively birthing. What can you do with me? What can you not do? What is the process of all that? What if something goes wrong? Who does what? Who steps in, making decisions? So it addresses all of that. And then during the time of, you're delivering the baby, there's all these, that's a category. What can you do with me as the mom? What you're willing to do and not do, and it also the baby. How's the baby going to be handled? And if these things happen, if it's hard taking them out, how are we handling that? And then after the baby's born, that's another whole category of what's okay for the doctors and the nurses to do with me, for me, how to interact with me, and then also that baby.
Yes.
And you should include your husband in each of those stages. And if there's someone else, if you're going to have a midwife or a doula in the hospital, or a family member that is very experienced, because there's a lot of women who are very experienced at birthing and they don't have a credential, but they're good advocates to be there for you. Where does that person fit in those three categories of, and if something, and that plan covers it all, right?
Yep.
If something goes wrong and I have to have an epidural, or I don't want an epidural, but if something goes wrong, do this, do that, how to go about it. That's when you're going to have the baby. But then there's situations that happen before that you can have a plan for that in place. Like if these things were to happen, what is at least the process that we are going to make a decision? We meaning me and my husband. How are we going to decide to do this? And if your husband can't be logical in that moment because there's emotions involved, but you as a mom in that situation, there's all the hormones and this stress response. It's very difficult to make a sound decision. My last episode was on neuroinflammation. Well, guess what? I'm sure that in that moment, there's a lot of from the cortisol of fear and what to do, that you just shut down. Your brain just shuts down. And so the partner, the husband, can come in as, to come in and make those decisions. And of course, if you would have talked about these things, and if there's someone that he needs to bounce ideas back because you're not even consciously aware, or you're not being able to be present, then what do we do in those situations? I don't think there's anything wrong. I would say if there's a young woman right now thinking, I want to get pregnant in 6 or 9 months or in the next year, I would say that this plan is more important than your baby shower.
I think so too.
It's more important than the birth announcement.
Yeah.
If it's a boy or girl, we put so much time and energy into those things, and then the things that we don't know to invest time and energy into, we don't. And it's not your fault. It's not my fault. Like I said, I had someone who was constantly on do the birth plan, and I was like, no. Until then I looked, I'm like, oh yeah. because there's some different choices I'm making,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to make sure that they respect my choices.
Yes.
Because when you go into a hospital or a doctor's office or anything with a written document and you sign it and you give them a copy, that's the other thing. Give them a copy, have your partner a copy, whoever needs to have a copy, have 10 copies. But give them the copy of what that's an agreement. It's a contract, and they have to respect that. And that's what we don't know, right? That's what we don't know, to do those things. And so this is for not to make anyone feel bad, but we want to advocate and inform other women of what are those steps to take, so they can prevent what's happened to other women. Because unfortunately what can happen in those situations is that, yes, we hope for the doctor being able to make the best decision possible, but they're also human. And you make really great points, Nicole, of, yes, they're good at what they do, but this is my body. I know what I'm feeling. And if that doctor is not checking in with you and saying, Nicole, how do you feel about this? What questions do you have? Where are the fears and concerns you have? If they're not meeting you there, and they're just like, we got to do this now because blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And their fear becomes your fear, and now you're in shock. What other things would you say in terms of the birth plan or advocating in that sense that you would add to that?
I think having a birth plan, of course, is really strong. It's a great thing to have for all the aspects of it. But one of the biggest things is understanding that just because you've poured all this effort and energy into this birth plan, there is a very big possibility that that whole birth plan can just be tossed out the window. If something does arise that is a complication, or something happens where it's like, okay, which this just happened with somebody very close to me I know. She had done everything she could to have a very healthy pregnancy, a very healthy, outcome, and things started getting a little off balance for her, and her birth plan just basically evaporated into thin air for her, all because, essentially the same thing, preeclampsia again. I don't know what it is with preeclampsia lately, but it has just been everywhere. But everything that she had wanted was gone because she kind of started going downhill. Baby had to be taken out via C-section, taken to the NICU. That wasn't in her birth plan. So that starts to put a lot on the mom and puts stress on her and can cause PTSD, like birthing PTSD, which is a huge thing that I don't think is talked about either.
Oh, yeah.
So understanding, yes, well, you want this and you can take this to your doctor, your OB. I think there is a very big factor of understanding that while this is what you want and they can accommodate it as much as possible, there is a very big possibility that it can change if something does go off track. But I think one of the big things that does go into that is there are doctors' offices and hospitals that will take those birth plans, and this may be controversial, I'm sorry, but they'll look at it, and I've seen posts about this lately online where OB offices are posting notes in the office of, this, thank you for your birth plan, but this isn't something that we're going to fully take into consideration. Like, you can bring this to us, but we are not we're not going to promise that we're going to take this and run with every step that you've given us. And
Right.
I've seen nurses take your birth plan and scoff at you like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, sure, we'll look at it. And then all of a sudden it's just kind of tossed in a pile of papers. And then things start progressing and you're showing that you're laboring in active labor and you're heading towards transition. And even with doula clients I've had, transition is a crazy moment. Like, I feel like you sort of black out and you're in this just room by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where having your partner or having a doula, or even just your mother or a sister, a best friend, someone who can help advocate for you, that's the best time to do it. Because when you're in the thick of it, nothing matters. When you're trying to have that baby. So there comes a point, though, where I notice that we're stopping treating women as people and start treating them like a process, which gets a little, that starts to become the gray matter in it with the birth plan. Because if your birth plan is very extensive and has all these amazing things and you've poured your heart into it and you walk up and you hand this to your nurse while you're about to go in for labor and they kind of look at it and just dismiss it, that also makes you feel not okay.
I think the key thing to it is not just to give it to them. This is what I've done. And I know I'm a naturopath, but both my babies were born in hospitals. And I did have a plan with each one. And I didn't make it complex. It was the categories and the things that were important to me then and there. And I do believe that you do need to be flexible with that, just so with anything in life, because you don't know, things might change. But my biggest thing was like exactly what you said. I don't want you to treat me like an object. I don't want you to just come and check me whenever, like talk to me.
Yeah.
And they know the first time I was not a doctor. The second time I didn't tell them I was a doctor.
Oh.
I didn't tell them I was a doctor.
How did that go?
It was great.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was at, what is it? Banner Desert in Mesa. Great hospital, by the way. Very respectful of I didn't tell them I was a doctor intentionally because I wanted to see how they interacted with me.
Yeah.
You know, the other one was at Banner University Hospital. This is 2010, so it's 16 years ago. And I have both experiences were positive, you know. I mean, there were some things that because of my choice of vaccinations, vitamin D and all that stuff, I knew I was going to get the pushback. And that was really the reason I wanted my birth plan was like, when this baby's born, I want that baby on me.
Yep.
You're not going to clamp the cord, you know, like I want this to happen. I'm going to nurse when the time is right. You know, you clamp it, cut the cord, you know.
Give me my golden hour, let me have my time.
And
Absolutely.
they respected that.
That's great.
And that was something I wasn't willing to budge. And the other thing was like, I told my husband, I need you to stick with this baby everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was those. I guess I'm a crunchy mom,
You
right?
have your moments.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want you to bathe them. Just leave them like that. Just clean them, wipe them off.
Poke them. Don't touch them. Just leave them alone.
And the nurses were awesome.
That's good.
It was the doctor. When the doctor came in, like, are you sure that this? I've already made an informed decision. The second time wasn't too bad, but the first time was like she was really insisting. And I felt like a lion already. Like, if you poke me, I'm going to, come at you.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like, I've already made an informed decision. That's all you need to know. So I was in such a state of bliss that I'm like, don't mess with me right now. Like, we're not going to leave this space. And then she eventually left me alone. But the biggest thing was, like, how do I want to be treated? Because, and here's why I said that, having older sisters and other women in my life who have given birth, and I've been here and there, not with everyone, but I've been able to witness this process. I was young, and I would see how they would just come, flip the sheet, just check. There was no communication, no interaction, just do, here, there, poke here, do that, and then would just leave like you're a car sitting in a parking garage, and people just come in and put their hands to do their work and get out. I don't like that.
Oh, especially if your birth plans, I would like a calm, because you're trying to stay focused. You're trying to breathe. You're trying to go through all these contractions. And the last thing you need is someone coming in, turning on the lights if you'd like it dim, being like, okay, I'm, moving you around. If you're trying to do hydrotherapy in it as well, I mean, that's another thing is they're coming in, trying to check you, making you get out, making you get in. That's essentially disrupting a process that our bodies I don't know if that's the right word. Physiological, that's our bodies know what to do.
It's physiological, and then it's intuitive too.
Exactly.
It's just like a natural flow of what you get off bed, get out, sit in. I have my birthing ball. I mean, whatever like you got to do your thing. Like I want to be in this space for just in case. But I don't need you to come pick the trash every 3 hours. I remember my husband laughed at me, Nicole, because my room was peaceful. I had essential oils. I had soft music playing. It was dim. Lights were dim. And even the nurse was like, can I do my work in here? It's so peaceful. I'm like, sure, stay in here. And I loved her a lot. When it was time for her to leave, I didn't want her to leave. But the cleaning people came in. She opened the door. And the crinkly noise that the bags
of the
make,
trash,
I remember I just looked at her like I'm like I just looked at her like and she just like left right away. And after I had the baby, my husband brought up that story or that scenario, and he's like, man, you should have seen the look on your face. It was like you were gonna kill her. Like just the look was piercing, like So even with just my look, the lady was like, I'm out.
Bye.
Yeah. Like, and I think that should be standard in hospitals or places. Like, is it really that, the bag, I guarantee you that garbage bag was empty. It sounded empty.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need for all of that, right? Or the nurse could leave it out. It's just little things like that do make a difference. But you're right. The birth plan is not, it's not going to be exactly that way. Because there were things and flexibilities that I have done with both situations that I was maybe not willing to at first, that I'm like, okay, well, here we are. So let's just do that. And it's like, okay, that helped or I didn't, it helped, but I didn't like it. Right. But I wasn't aware that the doctors were doing that.
It's crazy, right?
So I think verbalizing it, I wouldn't say give it up front that quick, but at least verbalize what your wants and desires are and be consistent in that, especially when you're in this room. Like, I know you got to check, but can you please check in with me first if I'm okay to being checked? Because
you don't have to do a cervical check every hour just to see where I'm progressing. You'll know when I'm in transition because you're going to hear it, you're going to see it, and you're going to feel it in the air because it's such a monumental, pivotal moment in your birth that you can, like they say with the tension, you can cut it with a knife because it is such a huge moment. And whether you've had the epidural through that moment or not, you're still going through that transition no matter what. And it's something that just should be respected. And even if you're having a C-section, whether it's a planned C-section or emergency C-section, there are still things that you can choose. Like, hey, after you remove my baby, bring the baby to the other side of the curtain, let me have that moment of chest, on my chest with skin to skin. That's still something that you can advocate for yourself. But I don't think a lot of women realize that because it's such a sterile, surgical, scary, like, very rigorous environment that you don't realize that that's something that's an option to you. And that's where research and understanding, and not just researching baby, so circling back to this again, searching stuff to understand for yourself of what your rights are, what your choices are, what you can choose to have happen. And unless there's like an emergency with the baby where they can't do that, of course that's going to change.
Don't put him on my chest. Like,
exactly.
Go take care of the
baby.
Take
care of my baby. That's the biggest thing. But if everything is great, let me have that moment, and
let's talk about that because I think more and more people are becoming aware of the importance of why not clamp, why hold your baby, why nurse the baby, why the skin to skin contact. Let's talk a little bit about that because I mean, like I said, I know more women are aware of this, but why are those steps important? I have my opinion, but I want you to go first.
I mean, it goes back to our mammal instinct. I mean, you got to remember historically, like, birthing was very private and sacred, and we were women were birthing in caves. No one was coming in. Outside. These cavemen didn't come in with their clubs being like, hey, we're gonna check you, we're gonna take this baby, we're gonna do this. No, it was a very you were in a familiar environment. It was very safe. You were able to have that moment, and chest to chest, or like skin to skin on your chest, regulates your breathing while the baby's breathing. It regulates their body temperature. It helps your own body allow that rush of endorphins and serotonin and just everything to flow correctly. All the oxytocin. That allows your body to send the vital messages to yourself, like, okay, now
we're done. We
need to learn to let everything go. You just birthed the baby. Now let's activate your breasts so that your baby can, go and start breastfeeding and nursing and doing everything. So it all falls into, like I said, the physiological aspect of how we are as women, and it's very important. Clamping the cord and doing delayed with that is very important as well, because I can't remember the exact amount off the top of my head, but there is so much blood left behind in the placenta going through the umbilical cord to the baby. So you're going to be more the professional on this as the doctor, but the umbilical cord is allowing the blood to flow from placenta to baby and back and forth. It's essentially like the little cleaning system and giving the nutrients and everything. If you're clamping that off, you're leaving all this blood behind and vitamins and nutrients and iron and everything behind in this placenta and in this cord, and you're cutting that off from the baby. So that's essentially causing things like jaundice to happen, low vitamins, all these things to be missing because it got left behind, cut, and you just severed that amazing connection that they're still missing out on of having everything come into their body. So you want to wait, even if they don't allow you to wait, until it's completely white and empty and not pulsating anymore, even a few minutes. It doesn't have to be, I know there's Lotus births where they like put it into the bowl and allow you to just let it do its thing once you birth the placenta, but you're able, if you can choose, to let it just do its thing and let the baby get everything out of it until your placenta's empty, till the cord is completely white and baby has everything back in their body how they're supposed to. But that also goes back to, you don't want them milking the cord. You want it to just naturally flow. So you're not just like, causing stress to the baby as well. So that was there one more that you wanted my opinion on?
You're speaking so well. I'm like, all of it. Dr. Nicole, guys.
Give me my lab coat.
Yes, give her a lab coat. Honorary lab coat. You know more than most people.
I'm
but
so passionate about this
You are
stuff.
passionate. I
really
can tell. Like, all of those are great points. Why not? And by the way, the hospitals will allow you to do that. I asked for it. You have to ask for it. You have to know that you can ask for it to delay the clamping. I took my placenta home.
Did you encapsulate it?
I did not.
Okay. I didn't either.
Some people encapsulate. I have, like I said, I have my opinions about it. The placenta does carry a lot of toxins. Did I really need it? I'd rather do it through food and other herbs and so forth. But we did plant the placenta, and we planted a tree over it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to ask you for.
And I did do I have it. I have a picture of it. I did a print of the placenta, and it looks like a woman. With the tree
of life. Yes.
It just naturally looks like that. And so I have that image still. I have the print, and I have a picture of the print.
Oh, I love that.
But yeah, these are things that you could do. I think I do notice a difference when women do that with their babies. It's subtle, but you said all the blood, all the nutrients, part of the immune system, all of that is what the baby needs. And then at some point, could clamp, cut, go on. There's a lot of different indigenous traditions around the placenta too. We call it the second birth, right? Because you birth a baby and then you got to birth the placenta too. And so all of these things that you're saying, the contact with the baby, all of those are very important reasons why you would want skin to skin. Where I see that psychologically the baby, when they don't get that, especially, unfortunately, this happens with some children. And like I said, this is where you have to be flexible and adaptable, that if you're in a situation that your baby does need to be sent to ICU, it is what it is. Surrender, still be with the baby, advocate for the baby, but, obviously the doctors want that baby to live. Every professional wants that baby to live. But we also want mom to be healthy and living as well. And so sometimes when that doesn't happen, that distance happens, what I've noticed is that there's that love bonding part. There's sometimes that does show up as trauma in people as adults. They won't even know it. But there's almost like this spirit of like rejection and abandonment. And they don't know why. They have loving parents. The parents were there all the time. And so these are the places that I say we bring prayer into. And if you pray for that baby that was in ICU or didn't have contact, just pray for them that they are wanted, they are loved, they're accepted, that, and you pray against that spirit of rejection, because sometimes that does show up and they don't know. Like I've had patients that they don't know why, and we go through a process of walking through that, and it goes back to either in the womb when they were birthed or during the birthing process or after, like there was that they felt rejected, but it's not. It was just like this was something that we needed to do to survive. Okay, we talked about a lot of things. We
did.
But what are some things that you really, really feel that are great points for patients or women to take away from this?
I mean, I think women just deserve to understand what's happening in their bodies, and they need to remember advocacy is not confrontation. It is participation.
Yes.
That's a huge thing. Is why would you walk into something and not speak up for yourself? If you're going to speak up for things in everyday life, don't shut down in that really big moment that's life-changing for you, for the baby, for your family, and just shut down. That's the best time to speak out and really participate in this whole thing. I mean, you participated in the growth of the baby, the birth plan, the baby shower, the nursery, everything. So this is another huge moment that needs to be focused on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I do think that women need to participate in their own health care.
Yeah.
And then in the process, I'm always a fan of telling women, if you want to get pregnant, you and your partner need to do a detoxing and healthy for 6 months at least, and make sure that you have all the right things in your body to conceive, because the quality of the sperm matters too, guys. And so that's the seed that gets planted in the fertile soil. And so if you have crappy seed, hello. So men need to also take their role active in this. And so but even if you do all that, unfortunately there are still like the unforeseen situations. So this is one of those topics that no matter how much you plan, I don't think that you're ever gonna get it right.
Yeah.
But I think what they can do is what you said, is that you're actively participating in your appointments. Don't just rely that your doctor's measuring you and weighing you and doing the ultrasound and doing the exams and that's it. Talk about, ask the questions. If there's fears and concerns you have, ask about that. I would say ask other women, but in my experience, unless that woman has encountered real scenarios like you where you had to navigate through this, if someone had like a perfect, pregnant, well, not perfect, no one's perfect, but if they had a uneventful pregnancy and delivery, they're not really going to be able to give you much feedback is what I have experienced, because they've never had those. So maybe monitoring like blood pressure, blood sugars, just here and there at home on your own, just to kind of keep track of anything that's, if there is anything that's out of the norm, even if you think it sounds like a dumb question, it's not.
It's not.
Ask. And every pregnancy is different.
Yep. I know that firsthand, and went in with my rainbow baby, scared as heck, thinking, what is going to happen? Everything's going to go wrong again. Nothing went wrong. I mean, yes, I had things come up again towards the end, but everything worked out so great that I was like, wow, why was I so worried about this? They even said treat every pregnancy different, because your first, no matter how many kids you have, your first pregnancy could be a piece of cake, and your last one could be all sorts of things.
Amen to that. My mom had 9 children.
Ooh.
And all of them were different.
Yeah.
Her ninth one was more complicated, and then I guess it's always men. It was the brother before me, so child number 7 and child number 9 were more difficult for her. Yeah. And so even if you birth at home, she birthed 7 children at home.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then when I was born here, she said they wouldn't let her push. It wasn't time, and she's like, oh, it's time. There is something that you said that I want to touch on. There is something magical about that transition, like when it's time. I remember that is something that many women told me when I had my first child. You'll just know.
Yep.
How do I know when it's time to have the baby? Everyone would just say, you're just going to know.
You can't explain it or describe it unless you go through it.
Yeah.
And
it's deep.
It's deep.
Don't you think it's something so deeply like spiritual? Like it's just like it's time.
And your body is like, wait a minute, I know exactly what I'm doing. Let me take the lead on this.
Yes.
So that's why you also don't need doctors being like, let's start pushing now because I need to get this kind of moving along.
You're interfering with that.
You're interfering with the timeline
process
of everybody. Let's go. Let's push. Let's do this. Let's do that. No, let's hold on. My body's going to tell me. And it does. It definitely does. Especially if it's not your first pregnancy. The first pregnancy is always going to be different because your body's never gone through it. It doesn't know. It's a new marathon. It's your first time running a marathon, essentially. And your body's like, okay, I trained for this, I prepared for this, but wow, now we're running and I don't know what I'm doing, so let's work together. But when you've done it again, your next marathon's going to be a little bit easier, which your body's gone through it. It's dilated, it's pushed the baby out, it's understood how to go through the process, so you just have to trust yourself.
Yeah. I remember when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I went to this lady's house, and I was waiting for them to open the door, and I see that outside was a dog, and it was laying, there was some puppies by her. And the little girl that lived there comes out, and she's like, I'm looking at the dog, and I'm like, she's giving birth. And it was so, if we've ever seen animals birth, right, the dog was just laying there, calm and peaceful. No even, and I remember the dog looked at me, and she just kept looking at me as she's birthing. And I felt a confidence from that animal to me. Like you're saying, look, I could do this, you could do this. Because I did keep thinking, like, what's it going to be like? And I'm like, this dog is there birthing, and you couldn't even tell. But yet as women, we that's not what we see. Movies show this, TV shows show this
unrealistic
expectation.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually like, how do we harness that power within us and be still and have peace and let our bodies tell us? It's so intelligent, just so intelligent. So
I think information should empower women and not scare them. And that's the big thing too, is to just trust our bodies, because we're such magical like creatures and beings that we can bring life into the world. So we should just trust ourselves through it and understand our bodies. And
that's very important, because the world is saying women are weak or vulnerable and this and that, but I've heard people say it doesn't take much for a woman to give birth.
Let them do it, and then come back to the topic.
Like, it's a mental and spiritual strength that happens there, and surrender. Anything else? I
don't think so.
I want to run just really quick through this tool that I found online that I thought was very helpful as we wrap here up. It's called the Brain Tool. And so each letter stands for something. And B is, these are things you can ask yourself, what are the benefits? And this could be true for any medical procedure. What are the benefits of this treatment? What are the benefits of this decision? What are the risks in this decision? What are the risks of these treatments, right? A is the alternatives. What are the alternatives to this? Sometimes there might not be an alternative. If you're trying to save the life of the mom, the life of the baby, both, there might not be an alternative. It might be the C-section. But you still want to know the risk, right? You still want to understand the risk. And then I is what does your intuition say? I think oftentimes we negate what that inner voice tells us. So what does our intuition say? What do you feel about this? And then N is what happens if we do nothing? So if we do nothing, what can go wrong? And usually when you go through these 4 questions, you're gonna see where do I need to collaborate? Where do I need to be flexible? What's absolutely not. I've seen many situations where, women were told you have to abort this baby. It's not going to make it. You're not going to make it. But the mom's intuition superseded all the knowledge, and she felt like, no, I am not going to do this. I'm going to, and it was coming from within her. I say it was God's voice speaking to her. She didn't abort the baby, goes on with the pregnancy, baby's fine, she's fine. That person is an adult now contributing to society. So, there's just some things that you have to go through that process of advocating for yourself. Any closing remarks, Nicole, before we wrap up?
I think just to follow up on that is when women are educated beforehand, they're much more confident to ask those important questions and pressing questions, even in the middle of very stressful situations or things not going to plan. So that just really circles back to, if you're really understanding and learning how to have the advocacy for yourself or informed consent for yourself, it's just going to be huge and make a big difference.
That's good. Thank you, Nicole, for being here and
thank you for having me.
Sharing your knowledge and your experience. Thank you guys for tuning into this conversation. I feel like there needs to be another part to this, because advocating for yourself as a woman, as a mother, or advocating for your wife, for your baby, right? These are very important things. And anytime that we're having to make decisions that involves the life of someone else, it's something serious. It's not something to take lightly. And so we want to empower women, and their husbands to feel safe to advocate for themselves. That you can speak up for yourself. That you can ask questions. That if they talk about a procedure you don't understand, that you feel safe enough to ask those questions and not feel like it's a stupid question, because it's not. You're not the doctor, but this is your body and you have every right to ask those questions. So I hope this information has blessed you. I hope that it's brought in some maybe new insight to you. And until next time, be blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raices, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.